Welcome to the Friends of Delray, a diverse group of Delray Beach residents coming together to build a positive city environment which is open and transparent. Our goal is to inform, share, and unite. Learn about what's happening in our village by the sea, from our pristine beaches to the corridors of City Hall. Hi, I'm Judy Malika, moderator for the Friends of Delray podcast, and a concerned Delray citizen willing to ask the tough questions of our informed guests and dig deep into the issues relevant to the future of our wonderful city. Today we'll be discussing some of the recent Florida legislation and possible effects on municipalities. Our guest today is Ann Gannon. Ann is the constitutional tax collector for Palm Beach County. I'm sure we've all written a check to her if we live here in the area, but Ann, you're doing a terrific job and I'm delighted to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Judy. I'm delighted to be here with the Friends of Delray.
Thank you. Well, before we get into our topic, I wanted to speak about something that you and I are both passionate about, and that is voting.
Yes.
I believe it is not only a privilege, but it's our responsibility. Do you think that everyone understands the vote by mail process?
No, I'm sure many people do not, since the law was changed last year, and you're now required to what we call re-up your absentee ballot every 2 years. If you don't, you will not receive one. And I believe that the 10% of the people who turned out in our city elections were affected by that lack of knowledge of having to go and re-up their absentee ballot. It's really, really easy to do. You can go online and fill the form out, or you can call the supervisor of elections office and work with the office, and they will ensure that you do that. If you mail in a form that's been sent to you, you have to ensure that you have, I believe it is the last 4 digits of your social security number on that, or your driver's license number, and that's required under state statute.
Some people like to go to the ballot.
Right.
I always get it mail-in ballot because I don't know if I'm going to be out of town seeing my daughter, or if I'm going to get busy and then have to pick up dinner and then space it. So I like to just do it in the comfort of my home and get it done.
I do too, because some days I don't know a lot about the candidates, and I go on the internet and study the issues that they're in favor of. But one of the most important things I think people need to understand is when you change your registration from Republican or Democrat to NPA, it really means what you're doing is allowing a smaller group of people to choose who your candidates are going to be in the general election. So choosing which party you want to be, or you could be the independent, and it's not an independent, but it would be called an MPA, does not allow you to vote in primary elections in the state of Florida.
Right, right. So a couple of the bills, getting back to the Florida legislature, has recently been signed into law, and I wanted to speak to you about them. One of them isn't necessarily about municipal, but it is a ban on abortion after 6 weeks. I know this law has it's not in effect yet, it has a trigger provision that comes into law depending on the decision of the Florida Supreme Court case. Can you explain that?
Yes, I can take you through that whole process. In 1989, the Florida Supreme Court ruled that abortion was covered under the Privacy Clause. And the other issue that's covered under the Privacy Clause is your ability to own a gun. So there is a lot of consternation going on at the Florida Supreme Court, even though the Chief Justice of the Florida Supreme Court has indicated in previous rulings and comments and speeches that he favors abortion rights. So this is a issue that's dealing with the 15-week ban that was passed last year.
Right.
If the court says that's unconstitutional, then the 6-week ban moves in. And keep in mind that the 6-week ban does not have any exemptions for women who have experienced rape, incest, or their life or health threatened by a health issue. So do I like either one of them? No, I don't. I think that decision, I don't think the government belongs in my bedroom or with my doctor making my healthcare choices. And I believe that there is some movement in Florida that there may potentially be a constitutional amendment to protect a woman's right to choose.
75% of Florida residents are opposed to this ban. So I would think that our legislature would listen to us.
I think that their hearing aids haven't been working lately. I don't know what else to say.
Right,
And more
right.
importantly, I don't really think they care. And because the Republicans have a supermajority, they don't really have to care. As I was told by a colleague of mine in another county, that they have a supermajority, they can do anything they want, and Democrats need to step back because we're in charge.
But it's not about who's in charge, it's about what do we want, because we voted for them.
Right, exactly.
Hopefully.
So those people who did vote for your legislator, check how they voted on these issues.
Right.
And please take time out to either call their office or email them or write them a personal letter. I would suggest that you call their office and talk to them.
So I wanted to look, what is home rule? And do you think that this Florida legislature is affecting county and municipal home rule?
Yes, they have been for about 8 years, and they continue to chip away at your county's ability to determine what is good for their county and a city's ability to determine what kinds of ordinances, what kind of rules, regulations are in your city. And we've seen a number of issues this session be discussed. I'm not sure if they've passed all the way through the process. As you know, tomorrow is the last day
Yes.
of the legislature. So we will see once they sine die what's passed and what's not.
One I know that did get through is that recently signed by the governor was the anti-ESG bill. ESG is environmental, social, and governance standards, and it bans state agencies and local governments from taking climate change and diversity factor into account when investing money. How could that affect us? I think even the city.
Well, it actually would affect our office because it includes banks. And my office has $3 billion that we collect every single year. And so if our bank has a program that includes those, does that mean I have to go out for RFP to get a new bank? The problem with us going out for RFP is there are a limited number of banks that can handle that much money. So the last time we went out to bid for a banking contract, it took us almost 2 years negotiating because there just are no banks that can handle that kind of money.
Wow.
And it was really tough for us. So we're looking for some guidance from Tallahassee if this bill passes and it affects our office that way. Personally, when I look at investments from a personal perspective, I want those things in my investments. I think they're important in our world today so that everybody shares in the wealth.
I agree. I know the state pension pulled out like $2 billion from BlackRock, which is the largest asset management firm in the world. And I feel like this might also, could that impact municipal bonds? Like if we're getting a municipal bond for storm surge for climate change, are we not allowed to do that?
You could get it, but you have to get a firm that doesn't have ESG in their vision of their corporation.
Okay. Wow.
And that would be one of the requirements in the RFP, that you don't require that. So, but there are a lot of states who started out doing that, some particularly very conservative states like Oklahoma, who figured out the repercussions and how it would affect their state budget and their state, and they pulled back on those issues. So we'll see what happens in Florida.
Maybe we should learn from other states too. HB 405 proposes an amendment to the Florida Constitution, which it would take a constitutional amendment, that would prohibit nonpartisan municipal elections. It's already been through its first reading. Do you think that's ever going to be possible? Because Delray is a nonpartisan municipal election. I don't want to see it go the other way.
Most city elections are nonpartisan. They're not partisan. The only reason our county commissions are partisan election is because of a court case in Orlando that dealt with a tax collector and a county commission race. Other than that, many constitutional offices used to be nonpartisan in the state of Florida. My office is partisan. All of our offices are now because of that decision. So the problem with those amendments to the Constitution is it takes 60% to pass it. That's a very, very difficult threshold.
60% of the whole population, so it's a
Of
referendum.
Those voting, those people voting.
I see.
It's very difficult to get that, particularly if there are people running a campaign against it.
Okay.
And I certainly hope there will be.
I think we should do that. Let's do it. There's a couple that are in bill form that I don't know how far they've gotten or what they're doing, but I wanted to speak to you about that. One is SB 1346, Resiliency and Safe Structure Act, which prohibits cities from blocking the demolition of historical buildings that are considered unsafe. Buildings that are like seaward of the coastal construction line must meet FEMA regulations. How can cities protect their historic structures if something like that, and what would prevent like developers coming in and just buying these?
Well, I think you've got that turned around. I think what
How?
it does is give permission to the cities or developers to come in and purchase the property and tear it down.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think what you said was the opposite
Okay.
of that. But it did pass, I believe.
Did it?
Yes.
I know
and
it's good, yeah.
It was authored by a senator in Miami-Dade, and it is going to affect some of our historic districts. Now, it won't affect Delray because I already checked. It shouldn't affect us, but it would allow them if there's a old building, like maybe this building, if it's historic, they could come in and just tear it down.
Tear it down.
Without the city being able to block it.
I know single-family homes are exempt, and something on the historic registry
Yes.
are exempt. But aside from that, you're right, I don't think Delray has any large structures in that
No,
area.
it's really, there's a building in Miami,
Miami.
that a developer was denied access to tear down because of its historic significance, and that's where it came from. But that typically is how those kind of bills are, introduced.
Because somebody wants something.
Yeah, they want something and they can't get it locally. It's like on the edge of the Everglades, they tried to put a big warehouse down in Miami. And the county commission said no because it would affect the Everglades restoration. And it's so interesting because this is one of DeSantis's big topics is restoration of the Everglades, and yet the developer went to the legislature to try and pass this, and I'm not really sure where that bill is.
You got to stay on your toes and look at these things because
Oh,
when it comes and it's law, you're like, wait, how'd that happen?
How that happened.
Right?
Well, it's even worse than that because we have a bill dealing with DMV issues that our office deals with, and the secretary has some of his issues in our bill. We got 2 amendments, one of which was by a senator who had a friend who's a convicted felon who wanted a CDL license. So he put an amendment in the bill.
What's a CDL license?
It's a truck driver.
Okay.
That would allow, because frankly, right now in Florida we have a shortage of truck drivers.
Okay.
So he put this amendment in the bill, and then we had another senator from Miami-Dade who put an amendment that dealt with a parking garage that they wanted. He had a friend who owned the parking garage, and they started charging when a person was, their time had run out. They started charging them fines and fees from the time the time ran out. And so he was trying to create a way for them to continue to do that because it's actually illegal under Florida law right now. And it killed our bill last night. But it's what happens in the process. And it usually happens the last week of session.
You were a lobbyist at one point, right?
Yes,
so
I
you
was.
have a lot of insight into this. It was a learning curve to me to figure out how many, I know the 3 readings and the tabling and the whatever and the endorsing, so you've got all that.
Yes,
That helps.
it does. The process is what is important in the legislature, unless the speaker likes you or the Senate president, and they roll the bill through for you.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They'll do that.
I did not know that.
They'll pull it out of committees, which you're not supposed
So
to do.
there's another one, I don't know the disposition of this one right now. It's SB 266 HB 999. I think it's morphed a little bit. and that's the DEI, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for higher education. So in essence, it's censorship for higher education for public colleges. And it dictates what course study college students could pursue and prohibiting certain fields of study. What is your thinking on that with regard to college students?
It's really shameful because you go to college to learn as much as you can and learn as much about other people's ideas and thoughts. And now we've limited the ability of our students in Florida. And frankly, you've limited their ability to be in the world today and function well. That's really what it does.
Right. It's, harnessing free thinking, I guess.
I mean, I know the Women's Studies program at FAU is probably going to be cut. And there are many women who actually fund part of that program with a $1,000 donation every year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not just funded by tax dollars.
There's one more before I want to talk to you about something else, and I don't know about this one, but there was talking about new limits on the increase of homestead property taxes. You should definitely know about that one, right?
Actually, they were going to decrease the...
Right, from 3 to 2?
Yeah, but that didn't, to my knowledge, that did not go anywhere.
Okay.
That really affects our counties and our cities and all of our special taxing districts.
So that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough. That would be tough.
Yeah.
And by the way, Florida has one of the best taxing structures in the United States. We have no income tax. And when you look at the tax structure, there are 3 stools. One of them is an income tax, your property tax, and your sales tax. We have 2 of those.
Right.
And people complain about our taxes being so high. Mm-hmm. The reality is if you're homesteaded and you live here all year round, you're limited to a 3% cap. So your taxes don't actually go up that much. I think that's a good structure that we have. People that complain a lot, it's the ones who have moved here for that very reason.
Mm-hmm. So this is something that's not part of my questions, but for you, and that is when the property values increase so much because of the sales, like if they go down, does that also, adjustments are made?
Yes, it affects it.
All right, I've not really been in that kind of a market, but when it happens, I'm going to look for you.
Oh, well, see, I don't really deal with values.
Oh, you're not the property appraiser, okay.
They deal with all the values.
Okay.
You know, and they reappraise properties in neighborhoods. They have a whole program they do it, and they look at the values.
Okay.
They could go up or down. I
Right.
mean, we saw that happen before.
Of course, yeah. Can you talk to me about the Resign to Run law and how it's being treated now?
Well, first of all,
And explain what it is. First of all.
It's not. That's kind of a misnomer. It's not really. What it really says is that you can't hold 2 elected positions at one time.
All right, that
so
makes sense.
if you're running for, and it was passed in the 2007 when Charlie Crist was going to supposedly run with John McCain, it was passed so that he couldn't run at the same time, or he couldn't be elected to 2 offices. So once you're elected as say, president, there's a specific date you have to run because you haven't taken that office yet. Okay. And it's not what everybody says. They don't understand the law. Did we need to change the law? We really didn't need to change it, and it doesn't add anything special for DeSantis. It merely says that you can't hold 2 public offices at the same time. So I could run for governor of the state of Florida, which I never would do. That would be a nightmare.
Wait, we need you.
No, that would be a nightmare. And the day I got elected, then I would, you have to resign when you take your seat.
I see.
That's really what it is.
Okay, got it. So there's really no big switch there.
There's not a big switch, and everybody's all up in arms about it. And they really just need to read the rules.
Right.
And there's a great article on the AP website that talks about it.
I'm going to have to check that out. So is there anything else that you can think of that I've not covered with regard to maybe, I'm not going to call it legislative overreach, but legislation
It is.
that's kind of creeping into our cities?
Oh, I think the funniest bill this session is the one that's passed that you could get a fine if your car radio is being heard within 25 feet. You can get a ticket now. So,
Wow.
so do you want our police to run around checking all that out?
I wouldn't mind them pulling over the people with those cars that go, "Ooh," you know, the big loud cars that go by.
Yes.
Is that the same noise thing?
No, this is a radio.
This is only radio.
Yes.
Oh, darn. Okay.
That bill came out of Miami-Dade, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Oh my
very
goodness.
interesting. It's just
Yeah, I think there's better
ludicrous,
things.
some of these things.
Better things for our police to be doing, definitely.
Well, I think there is a lot better things
Yeah.
for police to be doing. Yes.
Well, Anne, I'm going to wrap it up because of time, but I thank you so much for
Oh,
taking
you're
time out
welcome.
of your day or evening to be here. And it was lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, it was
Let's
very
do
nice
it again.
chatting with
Okay.
you. Thank you.
I'm Judy Malika for Friends of Delray. Please let your voices be heard, get engaged, talk with neighbors, and attend city meetings. And watch for our next podcast or video. We believe Delray is at its best when we're stronger together. Thank you for joining Friends of Delray, addressing the relevant issues facing our community. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube, and please sign up for our newsletter at our website, friendsofdelray.us. We believe Delray is at its best when we work together.